All right, good afternoon, everybody. Good Erev Shabbos. Pay is still wet out of the mikveh. On my way home, let's talk a little bit about Parshas Miketz. So there's a interesting Dvar Torah in Parshas Miketz that I like to quote. It's from Reb Nosson David of Shidlovtze. He was the grandson of the Yiddish Kodesh, and he was a big Rebbe in Poland. Really, in his time, one of the biggest Rebbes there was in Poland. Lived at the same time as the Divrei Chaim. Was in Galicia, and they both had mutual admiration for one another, to the point where each one said they wanted to be a chassid of the other in a certain sense. This was already that point in history when Hasidus was normalized. It was mainstream, and Reb Nosson David of Shidlovtze was an incredible person because of his humility and his normalcy. He strove very much to be very normal, down to earth, not get full of himself. Despite having such a large following. I mean, I think the story goes was that he said something along the lines that, if I'm trying to remember, maybe I'm getting the story wrong, but he quoted from, I forgot which Rebbe it was. He said that when Mashiach comes, the Jews will pick up a bottle of whiskey and say, from this little bottle we had the courage to make it through this bitter exile. And then the same Rebbe said, and they'll pick up a little Rebbe like me, and they said with a little bottle of whiskey like this we had the courage to make it through exile, and with a little Rebbe like me they'll also pick up that with a little Rebbe like me we were able to get through the exile. But then Reb Nosson David said, but a Rebbe like me, I'm so small they won't even pick me up to say that I helped him get through the exile. That was his humility, even though he was one of the biggest rabbis, and even until the war, people would go. It was a big pilgrimage place to go daven at his kever. The kever was lost during the war, and I'm acquainted with. It's been a few years since I've seen him, but there's someone in Yerushalayim who, when he became a Hasidic Rebbe, he inherited from his father-in-law. His father-in-law was the Biala Rebbe. He said there's enough Biala Rebbes. There's already 4 now. There's going to be, 14. I'm not going to call myself Biala Rebbe. I'm going to take a different name. If you want me to be Rebbe, I'm not. It's only on the condition I'm not calling myself Biala Rebbe. I need a name that nobody else has. So Shidlovtze. Maybe Shidlovtze Rebbe. Because nobody else took the name, so it's there for anybody to pick up. And the Biala dynasty, the first Biala Rebbe, was the son of Reb Nosson David of Shidlovtze. The Divrei Bina was the son of the Shidlovtze. And someone said to his son that his father said, your father calls himself Shidlovtze Rebbe, and he doesn't do anything for Shidlovtze, meaning that the kever, the oil of the Shidlovtze, Reb Nosson David of Shidlovtze, was missing since the war. It was bombed, and we don't know where it is, and the structure was lost. And so he said when he was told this, he couldn't sleep, and he went and raised money for this project, and went to Poland with some donors, and was able to miraculously find the lost kever of Nosson David Shadlovtza and build a new oil there over the kever of the Rebbe of Shadlovtza, the Rebbes of Shadlovtza. His son was also there. Maybe even 3 Rebbes are all buried there, and he found it there. Miraculous story. But in the meantime, before they got to building it, when they finally found it, after it was a whole story. I guess I can tell the story. He brought with him an old Jew whose father or her Zayda was dying in Shadlovtza before the war. He remembered where Zayda was buried, right outside of the oil. And when they and he said, there's a gate, and he said, maybe about, I don't know, 40 yards away from the gate, let's say. I don't know, I'm exact, 20 yards, I don't remember. Was the oil. And they were looking, didn't find anything. The gate was still there. So then I was there once after the oil had been built. I don't know how he noticed that, but the Rebbe said he was looking. They were very disappointed. They traveled all the way to Poland and nothing. So then they traveled to Pshischa, where the Shadlovtza, where Rabbi Nosson David's father and Zayda, the Yiddish Kodesh, and Rabbi Achmiel are buried. And when they get there, and they see that they daven there by the Yiddish Kodesh. The Rebbe says, I'm not here on a tiyul, I'm not here on a vacation, I'm here for a purpose. And he davened, he prayed, and the next day they went back to Shadlovtza, and the Rebbe said he noticed that it looked like at a certain point in the cemetery he's walking around that the graves were kind of tilted, almost like there were spokes of a wheel going to a central point. And he assumed that central point would be the oil, right? The whole cemetery would have been built around this main shrine, and he goes over there, and he brings the sonar equipment, and they brought some experts, and they found the Yesoidus. They found the I'm sorry, I'm so distracted right now. They found the foundations of the oil. But it was much closer to the gate than the old man remembered. And the old man said, Rebbe, I'm not here to argue with you, Rebbe, with Ruach HaKodesh, but he said, I don't have Ruach HaKodesh, this is just and he said, look, we found the Yesoidus. He said, but it's not over. And then he said, they started digging, and they found the tombstones, so they knew that's where it was. And they found out later that the gate was actually moved, and that's why it was not in the same place when the half of the cemetery was destroyed, but the Kfarim and the Tzaddikim were not destroyed. In fact, it came pretty close. It was not destroyed, but when they destroyed half of the cemetery, the communists, they moved the oil. They moved the gate. Didn't move the oil, of course. They moved the gate. Anyway, so let's. There's a Dvar Torah, and so anyway, there was an old lady there She said, a Polish Catholic woman, she said, in the old days we used to come here and pray, and we knew that our prayers would always be answered. And I was writing to the Jews in Warsaw, when are they going to rebuild this? And I'm so happy that finally you rebuilt my this shrine so we can come and pray again. It was a Catholic woman, but she knew that to go to the Jewish saints also works. Or maybe works better than than their own, right? So Nosson David writes, or I mean, he didn't write in his forum, but they say over in his name that why Rashi brings that Yosef and his brothers all of them took a vow of that they would not drink alcohol until they were reunited. After the brothers sold Joseph, they all took a vow not to drink alcohol until they were reunited. Now Joseph knew that these were his brothers, and the scripture says that they drank and became drunk. They became intoxicated, inebriated. How was that possible? I mean, Joseph knew who his brothers were, but they didn't know who he was. So Rav Nosson David says, when you sit and you drink with someone, they become your brother. You feel something, and they knew they were reunited with their brother somewhere deep in their heart, even if consciously they weren't aware of it, but on the subconscious level they were aware of it. Whatever that means, you can contemplate what that means. All right. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a good Shabbos. We'll see you later. Time to run a Streimel. Like Chanukah Lecht. It's already after Plaga Mincha. All right. Take care.